Hi there, my name is Mark Walker, and this is my podcast called Fierce Encouragement. If you're a new listener here, I just wanted to let you know that this podcast is about how we can step into that best version of ourselves, encourage and support ourselves. As a coach and a one-on-one consultant, I've found so many people and my clients, and myself included, struggle with disappointment and obviously doubt and discouragement in life. And this podcast is simply around how we can relearn and re-encourage ourselves in a positive, productive way. Not just to feel good all the time, but to show up when things get tough and imagine and use our imagination to encourage and support ourselves in fundamental ways. On a side note, if you are struggling and want to encourage yourself more, but it just isn't working, and if you want to learn more about what I offer as a coach, please reach out to me. You can find me at mark@markwalkercoach.com, and that's M-A-R-K. I hope you can give yourself permission to soak in the wisdom of this podcast, but also reach out for help if you need it and you want to feel more flourishing in your life. Today I wanted to talk about two modes of kind of being, and maybe two extremes on a scale: the survival mode and thriving mode. Or you could use the word flourishing, like I just mentioned, but this thriving, this sense of seeking out and winning and feeling like you're making progress, versus the other spectrum where we might be in a survival mode. We feel like every day is a battle. Maybe we need to fight for our food and our home and our shelter. But when we get stuck in a survival mode for long periods, the real challenge is how do we kind of plug into some of those higher needs on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those needs of love and belonging, the needs of kind of an expansive self, that self-actualization, like you're living your best life and having that opportunity to seek that out and win that game. So we have on one end of the spectrum the survival mode, and on the other end of the spectrum, the thriving mode. And I guess the real reason why I wanted to talk about this today was that I found myself in a survival mode a lot of the time. And when we kind of look back at our days and our weeks, maybe breaking it down in a journal or taking time to just sit and think about how we've been feeling and getting in touch with that, sometimes we can look back and look at the state of our mind and feel that energy from the past week or the past month and feel and kind of connect with, oh gosh, I've been in a constant battle, like a fight or flight, kind of back and forth, almost a ping pong, where you feel like there's no rest or sense of connection with a higher purpose or connection with others, or even that connection with your best self, that sense of thriving and leaning into that source of flourishing in your life, that dream you're going after, that expansive goal. So when we stay too long in a survival mode, we can really start to disconnect from a bigger vision or a more idealistic version of ourselves. And now that's not to say that we should, believe the dream and kind of live in a movie star mindset. It's the opposite. We need to learn how to encourage ourselves with positive things that we've accomplished, but at the same time, check ourselves, have that balance with regards to our mind. How am I doing? How have I been feeling? Have I been stuck in a survival mode and kind of feel really burnt out at the end of my week or my day or my month? Or have I been taking time and opportunity to pray, to meditate, to just relax and maybe write and make sure that you're kind of pointed in the direction you want to go in your life? We need to take that honest view with ourselves and hide nothing, lead ourselves powerfully, and pay attention to what's working, what needs work, and almost by making time and room in our lives for those needs in the middle, the need for connection, the need for a self-actualized life, one where you're going towards the things that truly matter to you, not just the the things that society kind of tells us is important, not just the Ferraris and the $1 million mansions, but a life of value and virtue, one where we're leaning into our strengths, one where we connect deeply with our purpose, but one that we help others. We connect to our community, we connect to our loved ones, our friends, and even our workmates. And we take that time to use the challenges in those arenas to encourage ourselves to remember those moments of mastery and go towards that self-actualized person or that self-actualized being that's waiting for us. When we're in survival mode, we kind of stay in a high place of stress where we have those hormones that are released that makes us feel more anxious, the adrenaline that floods our bloodstream and keeps our heart rate really elevated, that keeps our kind of fight or flight mode in constant on mode. We're always on, and we kind of never feel we quite get ahead. When we are in, and if you are in, or you find yourself in a continuous survival mode, or you can look back at the past week or the month or the past year and say to yourself, yeah, I have been in a survival mode. It might be the marriage. It might be the financial difficulties you're going through. It might be getting laid off from work. It might be a lot of things. But if we can look back and kind of have that honest viewpoint on it, I have been in a survival mode, and I'm not quite sure how to get out of it. One of the best things we can do in that, when we find ourselves in survival mode, is obviously take care of ourselves. Go back to those basic fundamentals or those basic needs. Am I eating healthy? Am I sleeping well? Am I getting good exercise and movement during my day? And am I connecting to my higher purpose or my bigger why, or just remembering why I'm working so hard? Maybe it's for the family. Maybe it's to continue to support and help people. But pay attention to those basic needs, those fundamental physiological needs of belonging, but also having, good food, healthy movement, good connection, good sleep, and making those a priority. Once we kind of plug those basic physiological needs in, we can start to get a little more intentional about what do we really want. And one way to do that is to just simply change our mindset around the pain that we might be going through. As we've learned from hundreds of authors and many Stoic philosophers and so much of cognitive behavioral therapy, we can change the way we look at our suffering. So more often than not, suffering is a choice to listen too much to those events and how they overcome us. And I guess that's a clunky way of saying that our resistance to the suffering becomes more painful oftentimes than the actual problem or the suffering itself. The only problem in our lives and in our pain and our suffering is our mind's resistance to the facts of life as they unfold. And this isn't to draw no sympathy to people that are going through horrible challenges and difficult things in war-torn countries, but it's to draw a light on to what is the ultimate measure of quality in our lives. So if we do have those basic needs met, and we find ourselves in a panicky, anxiety, survival mode most of the time, or a majority of our time, we would do good to stop and ask ourselves, are we reacting to events as they really are, or is it our own psychological resistance to those events that's creating more suffering in our life? Stress happens, but only gets bigger when we allow it to kind of dominate our thinking and dominate our mind. And again, the only real problem we have in our lives is our thinking mind's resistance to the life that we have in front of us. We can literally change the way we respond to difficulties and get out of survival mode. And that happens in many ways, making sure your basic fundamentals of eating, moving, sleeping are all dialed in. But it also happens with a mindset change. And it takes a lot of courage and facing down your fears and curiosity about how this might work. I know I probably have lost a lot of people maybe through the first few minutes here, but if you can kind of dial it in down to this main point, the way we think about the challenges in front of us changes the way our body physiologically responds. So if we see the challenge in front of us as something that we can approach, that we can go towards, that we can learn and grow from it, it releases different chemicals and hormones into our bloodstream than if we look at it as something overwhelming. If we look at something as dominating us and then there's no efficacy or ability to change the outcomes, then the challenge for us is that we're kind of stuck in that survival mode. So if you find yourself stuck in survival mode, maybe with anxiety, fear, anger, those responses that come, that I've endured, that many do endure, even maybe you today, we can learn to master ourselves and get more confident and go towards that thriving mode of being by being somebody who looks at the possibilities. No matter how dark or scary it gets in our lives, we can actually stop and pause, raise our view, see the possibilities about what could happen, what we're learning, how we're growing. The basic difference is choosing to embody that mindset versus coming from just a place of fear and being stuck. We deliver ourselves from the survival mindset by practicing and making effort to know the deeper purpose of why we're here, what we're working on. And just by taking that one stance, well, it's actually two, as I said it, make sure you got your basic fundamentals and your physiological needs met. And if we want that self-actualization, that need for self-actualization and deeper connection and deeper love, if we want those things to happen, we have to allow ourselves to be curious about how we can be more courageous, how we can change the dialogue in our mind, and see challenges as opportunities to win and learn and grow. Making that simple mindset change once a day, if you've not done it at all for the past couple weeks, deciding to do a little bit better in the conversation with your spouse or your partner tonight, deciding not to lose your temper with your kids or with your workmates, paying attention to those things that are coming up in yourself when you hear this. I'm sure, and I've gotten some feedback from my listeners, that what I say sometimes can strike a negative chord in people's minds. Pay attention to that. The magic of your transformation kind of lies in that resistance to the ideas I'm sharing. And we don't have to do everything all at once, but be bold, be deliberate, and ask yourself what you really want from this. Do you want to continue to be in a survival mode of living, feeling burnt out at the end of the week and the end of the month, and having bad years? Or can you dial in your basic fundamental needs like eating, moving, sleeping, and then continue to go towards those self-actualization, those higher connections in your life by inviting in a boldness that only can come from you? You need to take steps towards the challenges in your life, knowing that victory is not guaranteed, but the victory actually comes from you using your life force to plug into that best version of yourself, that self-actualized. So if you're living in a survival mode of being, ask yourself, how can I get 1% better today? How can I take 1 positive mindset action towards something more positive for myself today. And most importantly, making sure that you have good sleep, good connection with others, good movement, eat healthier. Maybe it's removing that one sugary drink today. So there's always something we can work on. There's always only one thing to work on. If you come from the school of overthinking that I have a PhD from, just understand that survival mode versus thriving mode is kind of in that decision to look at the challenges as opportunities to grow. Asking yourself, what's the next thing that needs to be done? And doing it. And trusting yourself. And knowing that you're going to do better tonight, today, tomorrow, and keep on being more consistent with that. I wanted to share one quote, and then I'll let you go, and I really appreciate you tuning in again. This is a quote from Carl Jung, and one that I kind of consider with all my creative projects, and even when I feel like that resistance inside to not take steps forward, whether it be making podcasts, doing writing, or reaching out and connecting with my clients and learning as a coach. It's hard work to step towards this expansive, self-actualized person that we all have in our hearts and in our minds. But when we deny it, we actually are letting an evil and a lethargy and a poor self-image dominate our life. We're distracted and we're disconnected from what's really important to us. But here's the quote. So this is Carl Jung. The spirit of evil is the negation of the life force by fear. Only boldness can deliver us from fear. If the risk is not taken, the meaning of your life is violated. Again, that's Carl Jung. Wonderful reminder that those risks we need to take are in that moment of inviting a learning, curious mindset into a difficult conversation, into a difficult situation at work, or even inviting it in when we're learning and listening and hiding nothing from ourselves. So how are you going to show up today and use your life force to overcome the fear and the doubt? How will you be bold and use the information from this podcast to help deliver yourself from the things that are holding you back? And if you don't take those risks, what happens? What pain is left there holding you back and not letting you, almost in a self-defeating way, not letting you take those steps towards the best version of yourself? So thank you once again for joining me. My name is Mark Walker. I'm a personal life coach. I help people feel better between their ears, but also take that step towards being the best version of themselves. Reach out if you'd like to talk. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you next time on Fierce Encouragement. Bye now.